Hello, my name's Catherine Cavendish, and I write horror stories, three of which so far have been published by Flame Tree Press. Welcome to Women in Horror with Flame Tree Press, and I'm joined by three fellow female authors with Flame Tree. And we're here today. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a second, but we're here today to talk about Women in Horror, Women in Horror Month, aspects of that, and basically aspects of women writing in our favourite genre. So more will be revealed as we go along because we're going to be having this chat. You know what it happens? You get four female horror writers together. Woo! Right.
Anything can happen.
Oh, heck.
Let's introduce. Well, I've introduced myself, but I'll hand over to V. Would you like to go first, and then if everybody else follow on?
Yeah, hello everyone. V Castro here with Flame Tree Press. I have The Queen of the Cicadas, and I also have, which just dropped, Mestiza Blood, which is a short story collection. I'm a Mexican American woman originally from Texas, but I now live in the UK, and I love horror. It's one of my favorite genres.
JH.
Well, I'm a female dark fiction writer. I have two books out from Flame Tree currently, The Restoration and Those Who Came Before. I live in Canada, but I'm moving to Mexico next year. Yes.
Wow.
So I'm currently learning Spanish. Hola.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Cerveza. Learn that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Beer.
Okay. And PD or Trish?
PD or Trish. Well, I first of all think Catherine needs to get initials because we're all initials here, and you're the only standout. So we can call you Cece. PD Cacek here, prematurely decomposed Cacek, and I am a horror writer, have been forever, and I'm here to get more ladies involved in our genre.
Absolutely. Right. Well, let's kick off. I mean, it's Women in Horror Month. Okay, unofficially it's Women in Horror Month, but let's talk about. Shall we have a chat about what the importance of that, as far as we see it from our perspective? I mean, from my perspective, I think it's incredibly important that we have a focus on women writers in our favorite genre, because I think a lot of it's so male dominated, both in perception and indeed in content. So I think it's very, very important that while we're obviously writing and reading horror 12 months of the year, that at least 1 month of the year, there is a particular focus on the breadth, diversity and content of women in horror. But what does everybody else think? What's your take on it? Anybody?
I mean, I think, look, I'd love for people to read, and there are a lot of people who read female horror throughout the year. But the importance of having a month is that to get people involved who do not necessarily, who are looking for something new or are looking for new writers. And there's more chatter on social media. There's a greater circulation of our work, because that's, I think, what is missing is, getting our work circulated, getting our names out there, having as much airtime as the better known male writers, and even the male writers that aren't better known. Just having, word of mouth is so vital. And so I think that that's what makes the month to hopefully also change the genre in general, and publishing in, even bigger publishing, is that, people get, new voices. And as more people read those new voices, it inspires other women saying, hey, if so-and-so can do it, I can do it, and that's important to me as, a woman of color, is other women of color who may not feel as comfortable or welcome to say, you know what, you got to start somewhere. I'm going to start it. I'm going to do it. Write that short story, write that novella, submit it, see what happens, and just get going on your craft. So for me, it's all about taking this little acorn and making it into a tree.
Yeah, it's well said. What about JH and Trish? What's your take on this?
JH, go ahead.
I don't even want to say how I really feel about this, because I'm probably the only one that doesn't like this month. So I don't know.
Well, it isn't official anymore. It's been sort of disbanded, but
Actually, what I've experienced since initially when I started publishing dark fiction, not writing, but publishing, I thought it was kind of not silly, but unneeded. I'm like, well, why do we need this? And then as I got deeper into the publishing end, I realized, oh, okay, this is why we need this, because I noticed that, and I probably said this in other podcasts Flame Trees had, it doesn't matter how well thought of you are by our male counterparts or by male fans. I've noticed that when it comes to things like awards or story calls or anything important like that can really boost your visibility, they'd forget about us. Right. So I thought, okay, this is a real thing. It's not that they're sexist. It's not that they don't like our work. We're not top of mind the way some of our male counterparts are. So I thought, okay, this is why we have this month. But then I noticed whenever Women in Horror Month came around, there was a lot of people seeming like, oh, yes, I support the women. Who do you read? Oh, Mary Shelley, Shirley Jackson, maybe Anne Rice. Now that Anne Rice has passed on, God rest her soul, which she's probably going to get mentioned more, right? Because it was always the same dead white females that were mentioned over and over and over again. And then there would be male indie writers that would, really dig and mention us. But then after the month's over, nothing changes. It goes right back to the way it was before. So my problem with it, I think the sentiment and the meaning behind it is good, and I don't mean be negative at all, I don't see it changing anything. Maybe you have seen it change some things, which is awesome, but I haven't seen it change anything. It's like the same thing every year. It's like Women in Horror Month. And then as soon as the calendar flips, it's like back to Stephen King and Dean Koontz. Sorry, I don't mean to be negative.
Okay, well, I see a lot of manuscripts come in to Flame Tree as one of their authors and their first readers. I get to see a lot. And I have noticed kind of a disheartening trend. A lot of the stuff I'm reading, by women authors, say, well, oh no, this is dark fantasy. It's that damn H word again. Horror. Horror is a naughty word, especially when I pronounce it. It sounds like I'm, going to stand on the street and, hi, I'm a horror writer. But that is where we have to start, is to take that word and going, look, horror is an emotion. You just write scary stuff. Okay. It used to be, and I just turned 70. So I'm back when it first started. We were told, oh, what, are you a writer? I'm a writer. What do you write? I write horror. Oh, and you get that look, and you get that. I don't read horror. What do you read? Well, I read Stephen King. Okay. My own mother hated my work. Why can't you write something nice that my friends can read? And her idea was romance, but she was insane anyway. But it got a bad rep. Horror has a bad rep. You ask a woman writer, what do you want to write? Oh, fantasy. I write fantasy. Do you realize that you have written in this one particular passage is horror? No, it's fantasy. Stop thinking that horror is bad, ladies.
Yeah.
We are writers, genre writers. Our genre is dark. Our genre is horrific. You don't have to write monsters. You don't have to write ghosts, although I love ghosts. It is the emotion you are trying to convey, and that is horror. It's horrific. My last two books from Flame Tree, plug. Second lives and second chances. Everyone, it's fantasy. It's Twilight Zone. It's horror. Person you love the most in your life dies. Miracle. They come back to life. They have the soul and memories of another person. That is horror. Doesn't qualify. Well, no, you don't write horror. You write this. Don't tell me what I write. Don't let anybody tell you what you write. You're going to write something dark. Write it. Don't listen to them.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you're saying there, Trish, because what you've said is exactly the sort of reaction that I've had. I mean, I can't count the number of times that somebody has said to me, oh, you're a writer. Yeah, what do you write? And I say, I write horror. And they do this sort of double take as if, oh my God, she's grown an extra head. She really belongs in a coffin until 2 o'clock in the morning when she will emerge. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They expect me to say romantic fiction, children's stories, whatever. Or cozy crime, for example, and crime is one. Oh, well, why don't you write something, like Agatha Christie? I said, and they'll say, well, have you read Agatha Christie? Oh, yes, I love Agatha Christie. Have you read The Hound of Death short story collection by Agatha Christie? No. What's that? Well, it's got a crime story in called Witness for the Prosecution. Oh, I must get that then. Yes, but it's also got, now, what was it? The, here we are, The Strange Case of Sir Arthur Carmichael, a young man who is seemingly possessed by the spirit and ghost and soul of a murdered cat. Not a crime story. It has also got The Last Seance, which is even darker than that, and involves a young girl being reincarnated through a medium, which ultimately destroys the medium. And it's potentially very gory, except that she hints it rather than splatters buckets of Kensington gore around and, that kind of thing. Exactly. So people are reading it. So, and what you're saying about this word horror, this emotive word horror, when I have changed what I've said about how I write, and I've said, I write spooky stories, and ghost stories, haunted houses. Oh, do you?
Oh, that's nice.
Completely different reaction. But that's part of horror. So what can we do to get more women writing horror or reading horror? Do we need to just get rid of the word? As you've said that there was a thing about it. Do we get rid of the word?
Do you remember? I can't remember how many years ago. HWA said we have to get rid of the word H. We have to get the H word out of there because people are not buying our stuff. It is a word. What are we going to call it? Scary stuff, spooky stuff,
dark fiction.
Well, remember it used to be called speculative because they didn't want the H word. If we have ladies out there right now, young women, old women, I don't care what you are, it goes, I want to be a writer and I like this stuff, but people don't like it. They look at me funny. Good. I'm a crone. I don't care how people look at me, and you're not, it doesn't matter who you are. It's what you write. You are the character. Another thing is like, well, women can't write horror because they're not as visceral as men. Yeah. We have a lot of male serial killers, not women, because we don't get caught. We're better at it. Now, if I have enough people going, okay, not going to read her, she's crazy. Again, it's changing the perspective of us, of women writers, going, just write. If it's scary, don't hold back and don't try to force it. The best kind of horror is internal, that you put external. And I always say, if you're going to write anything, write what you know. No, write what everybody knows. Yeah. Always get the piece of history that everybody knows. The cold wind at the back of your neck can be anything. It can be a breeze.
I completely agree.
I
completely agree because, a lot of experiences as a woman, as a Latina, the experiences of the women in my family and the men as well, and also, my ancestors' history is horror. And so I'm always telling there is an element of horror. And so I am always incredibly vocal in any podcasts and interviews, written interviews, when they're like, "Oh, what advice do you have?" And I'm like, "Right, just don't hold back." Like you're saying, if you have a voice, use it. If you have a story to tell it unfiltered. Don't go by the market, just go for it. Because what people respond to, and yes, publishing is a business, but is authenticity. I started writing not even 5 years ago, and I've, have accomplished a lot and have a lot that I haven't been able to talk about yet coming up. But I know part of that is perseverance, connection, and horror. Like you were saying, there is such a visceral connection because it's so powerful. And as women, our experiences are incredibly powerful, our emotions. And I find that women are able to articulate those things and connect with other people in a very special way. And so, I encourage everyone, just go for it. Like you said, like, don't just write it, just go for it, especially women of color, because there are so many stories out there to be told. There are so many experiences that need to be shared, because in that there can be unity between us. We can have better understanding as human beings if we share those stories and have the opportunity. So yeah, women in horror for me, and being a woman in horror is not just about, oh, I need to publish a story and it's about me. No, it's about putting my foot in the door, putting my big ass in the door, and letting other people through and saying, you know what? Let's open these doors wide. Let's take off the hinges. And I think the only way that's going to happen is if, all our collective female anger comes roaring out and we just make it happen. Change doesn't happen in history being nice or quiet. There's an element of horror to change.
Okay. JH, haven't heard from you for a few minutes. So how are you feeling about this? What do you think we can do?
Well, I think horror in general has a big stigma against it, partly because in the 80s, horror was associated with cheap pulp books and slasher movies. And I think when the general public hears the word horror and they say, I don't like horror, I don't read horror, that's what they're thinking of mostly. Like PD mentioned, I think Stephen King gets put in a different category because he doesn't write pulp all the time, right? So people have learned that, well, he writes mystery and he writes coming of age and he writes fantasy. They're not maybe thinking of it that way, but they realize that he is different from that cover with the blood and the doll and the So I think there are a lot of women writing in this genre. It's just marketed differently. It's marketed as thrillers. It's marketed like Gone Girl. Gone Girl's straight up horror.
Yeah.
So it's marketed as thrillers because publishing in general, big publishing, still believes that horror does not sell. I think TV and movies have gotten away from that. Obviously, there's been lots of great horror series and lots of great movies that have done really well. Get Out, Us, all these great movies have done really well. So they've got it. But I think publishing has been very slow to catch up. And as long as people keep thinking there's a stigma and they're like, oh, we're not going to market this as horror because it won't sell, we're going to market it as a thriller, that's going to continue. Like we almost need like the big people in publishing need to kind of someone needs to change their minds too. And I don't know if this is more women who write dark fiction coming up in the ranks or what needs to happen.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think if a woman broke really big mainstream with a horror novel today, I think it would slowly start to change. But everyone's so scared to put that horror label on it. Right? It's just, you'll get this great, really scary, like Mexican Gothic. That wasn't even promoted as a horror novel. So
there's a clue in the title there, isn't there?
Gothic is
it's actually,
different. Gothic,
And the cover as well was very
yeah,
pretty.
yeah, exactly. So but that's straight up like sci-fi horror.
Mhm.
So I think that the big minds in traditional publishing need to change too, just as movies and TV. Movies and TV, I think they've always known that horror sells, but for some reason there's that
but in horror movies, you still have the large bosomed young ladies, running around screaming, going eek eek, somebody save me.
Sometimes.
And but I'm old, frankly.
I think what could the big publishers, as we know, it's all about the bottom line. I mean, obviously a company has to be profitable to exist anyway, but with Flame Tree, for example, I mean, our publisher, our mutual publisher, who is an indie, but it's a big player in the indie, an increasingly big player, and increasingly influential, I would say, player in the indie publishing market. I mean, what could we suggest or get involved with as regards marketing with Flame Tree, for example? I mean, do Flame Tree need to get more female editors? Do they? I mean, I'm not convinced that would solve anything, really. I mean, it might for some people. It never bothers me whether I have a male editor or a female editor. I'm not, as long as they're good at the job, that's all I'm bothered about. Yeah. Make me look better than I would otherwise. And but do we need that? Do we need to have more, say, in the newsletter, which is free, that's mailed out? Do we need to perhaps have spotlights on specific female authors, or writer only female only writer competitions, perhaps? Or then are we just falling into another trap of discrimination, another form of discrimination?
That's problem.
JH, sorry, JH was waving then. So
I've thought a lot about this question about why Flame Tree is struggling to have more female authors submit, and I think it's a vicious cycle, right? So if I'm a woman and I write dark fiction and I look at a publisher and I see tons of books by men and I don't see a lot of books by women, I'm going to assume it's not female friendly, right? And I might submit somewhere else. So with our editor, for instance, right, I know a lot of the authors that were with him and other publishers followed him. I was one. I think, Kat, you were one as well.
I was one, yeah.
But a lot of them were men. So this line got started off with a lot of male writers, which is fine. But I think it's almost like I don't know if there needs to be a specific call for women so more women realize it's female friendly, because we could be buried, right? If women just skim the list of books, and a lot of us are using our initials, so who knows if we're women or not, right? It can look like there's only male authors published until they get to Faith.
Well, that's why
Right, Catherine? True, you're not
Cavendish.
Are you changing to CC Cavendish?
I know.
Well, I used initials way back when because it wasn't female friendly. It was
absolutely.
Are you a girl? Are you a guy? Just read. If we get to the point, I did a anthology, and it was a blind anthology. I did not know names. I did not know gender. I knew stories. Can't do that. But it maybe for the newsletter, which is free and very good, we should have a column. Women writers. Just something every time it comes out by a woman author saying, hey, this is where we are. Have people send in questions to us and we will answer them. How can I get started? Put butt in chair and write and read. How do we get more women to just go, I want to do this? All you have to do is say, I want to do this, and do it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. Say, it's not women friendly. Well, dang it, I'm going to break down the door and make it friendly. I may have to take out a few people, but, eventually it will be friendly.
Yeah.
And they're doing the roof. If you hear a crash or a foot comes through, what's going on? I live in horror. Yeah.
Okay, Faye, can I ask you? We haven't heard from you for a few minutes now, so tell us anything you'd like to add, because we haven't got too many more minutes.
I just think, I'm really active on social media, and I'm always kind of, tagging Flame Tree, always encouraging women when I can, and just getting the word out. Again, word of mouth is so incredibly important these days, especially with social media. And how to get more people to buy books by women, horror books, honestly, and this is going to sound maybe a little crass and a little, okay, you need to get our books in the hands of the right people, because you see a lot of big name guys back patting other big name guys. So getting blurbs by big authors, getting your book endorsed by bigger authors. So, getting a Stephen King to say, you know what, it's Black History Month, it's Latino History Month, it's Women in Horror Month. I'm going to suggest these 3 books by Black women. I'm going to suggest these 3 books by Latinx writers. That is what we need. Sorry, but that's what we need.
Okay, come on, Steve. Read this, hear this, do this.
So for me, it's not just public. This is a business, but I get really pissed off just seeing white guys patting other white guys. And I feel very blessed that I've had 2 amazing blurbs for Queen of Cicadas by Christopher Golden and Stephen Graham Jones. I mean, that is amazing. But that, you've got to really work hard. And people say, oh, blurbs aren't the end all be all. Yes, it is. Not it is, but that endorsement, that marketing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a point. I have noticed, and it's probably the way women are raised even now. A guy will come, a male writer will go, I'm the greatest thing you'll ever read. Look at my stuff. This is what I do. We have been taught as women, don't do that. We are very aware of going, look at me. I'm the world's best writer. I can do this. I can do this. I can do. We are told, no, back up. You don't do that. That is not ladylike. Ladies, it's ladylike. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a crone. I've grown beyond that, but don't shrink back. Don't stand in the shadows. I mean, we have been put there, and some of our ladies are going to go to pubs tonight, right? Dance. When you go out, ladies, and you are walking to your car afterwards, you are in danger, and you are in danger. We live in that mindset. We can be taken. We can be attacked. That is the horror that we live with every day. Put that down. You live with horror. Don't be aware of it and put it down.
Anybody, any closing comments? And JH, any closing comments? I'm going to have to draw everything to a conclusion in about 90 seconds. So
no pressure at all. I just love what V said so much. She's exactly right. We do need that. We need to be lifted up a little bit. Yes, we can be on social media, and yes, we can write what we want to write, and yes, we cannot hold back, but we do need a little bit of help. We need people to stop. Sorry, but we need people to stop thinking that Mary Shelley and Shirley Jackson are the only people who wrote horror, who are women. There needs to be more of a focus, and it can't just be on a month that makes everybody feel like they've done the right thing. It's like, putting a can of food in the food bank and thinking you've done your bit to help the poor, right? It just isn't enough.
Yeah. Right. So I'm guessing. I just agree with. I agree with everything that you've all said, because, it is okay. Women in Horror Month is a month, but Women in Horror are 12 months, and
absolutely,
yes, if we can promote each other online. I know I always try and retweet and keep up with.
I know it's so. When you're on deadline, you're like,
No. So I always try and do that, try and promote wherever I can. But and I know we all do. I know we will help each other, but we've got to do that. I love the idea of the spotlight. The sort of the article on women in the newsletter. Yeah, I think we need to do more. Getting the big names, some of the big names to endorse our books, provide blurbs that help to sell our books, helps to give us more credibility, all of that. And that is the thing. It's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to suddenly, Trish, you're not going to end up with suddenly 200 female authors all writing and submitting and saying, hey, I've written this great horror story.
Hey, no.
At least you'll know it is horror.
No, I will say, I'll put this out right now. If there's any woman horror writer that has a question for me, I'm on Facebook. PM me. Ask me a question. I will answer it.
Please do that, everybody that's out there, because I want to thank everybody that's here that's joined me, and we've had a lot of fun. I know we could go on all night, but I didn't bring any cake. I'm sorry. I meant to, but damn it. There's no coffee, there's no champagne.
I think we should end like this. Okay, I'm going to end like this. I'm PD Cacek, and I'm a horror writer.
Right. Excellent. Anybody else want to say?
I write horror. I love it.
I love it. JH?
I write dark fiction.
That is horror.
Thank you to Flame Tree for hosting us. I hope you've perhaps got some ideas, Flame Tree, from what we discussed today. We love you all because we adore what you're doing for us. Thank you, all of you, for spending a half an hour of your lives, all of you out there tuning in, watching and listening to 4 female horror authors. We're horror and we're proud. Okay.
Yes, right on. Literally.
And if you are whatever gender you are, but if you're female particularly, because that's what we're focusing on today, and you have a scary story in your mind, as we've all said in our different ways, go fire up that laptop, get it written, send it off to PD Cacek, send it off to Flame Tree. Email Flame Tree with any questions. It is a very female-friendly publisher.
Absolutely.
Female-friendly.
Publishers are available, but Flame Tree is a very female-friendly publisher. Thank you all very, very much indeed. I've got to close it now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Till the next time. Don't have too many nightmares. Bye.